Iran presented something to Donald Trump today. Iran issued a rather tough ultimatum to Donald Trump, and the monarchies of the Persian Gulf publicly accused Donald Trump of lying. And Trump himself stated that the war would resume as early as Friday, May 22. Trump claims that he has almost reached an agreement with Tehran. The day before, the US president stated that he had supposedly postponed the planned military attack on Iran, which was scheduled for today, May 19th. And supposedly he himself really wanted to attack, but the leaders of the Persian Gulf countries, primarily Qatar and Saudi Arabia, called him and simply begged him not to attack Iran. But meanwhile, Iran itself put forward a list of demands to Donald Trump for ending the war. And each time these demands become tougher, because now Iran is demanding compensation for damages, recognition of the fact that the US lost the war, and the complete withdrawal of American troops from the region. But the nuclear program will remain. And against this backdrop, officials in the Persian Gulf monarchies modestly stated today that, in fact, they didn't ask Donald Trump for anything. And in fact, they haven't contacted him in recent days, so Trump's statement that they asked him for something looks a bit strange. After that, Trump stated that, oh yes, an attack on Iran will happen, possibly this Friday. My name is Accuse. Let's discuss this topic together. But first, I ask you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, give it a like, and write any comment you want. And before we start, just a second of your attention, because this episode is brought to you with the support of the Preply platform. This is a Ukrainian platform for online foreign language tutors. There are about 100,000 teachers and 90 languages there. It's perfect for those of you who, for example, are living abroad and learning German, English, Polish, or really any language. And what's very important for you is that right now they have a 50% discount on the first lesson. That's why there's a link in the description of this video, and by following it, you'll immediately get a 50% discount from the YouTube channel Accuse. Well, let's move on to the episode. So, now let's go through everything step by step, and I'll start. Let's begin with the latest statement that just completely shocked me. Donald Trump said today that there's a war in Iran. It will soon become very, very popular. So, Trump said that Americans, well, idiots, just don't understand. They don't support the war in Iran only because they don't understand what it's being fought for. Here's his quote: "They tell me the war is very unpopular, but I think this war is very popular. Because we're fighting to make sure Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons which they could use to destroy, for example, Los Angeles. If we explain this to people, but I don't have time to explain it, because I'm leading this war. So do you understand what's in this quote?" He says, "These Americans are gross. Why bother explaining? If they don't get it, they're just stupid. And they think it's not popular, but I think it is. They say they don't understand, but who cares if they don't understand? I'm leading the war, and I don't care about anything else." And you know, here's this interesting quote. He says, "I'm leading this war. Let me remind you, under American law, he no longer has the right to wage war." The war, according to his own words, ended on May 1st, because the 60 days during which he can conduct military actions without Congress's approval had ended. And after that, he doesn't even have the right to use the word war. But something seems to have broken in America. And now the American president can just ignore all the laws. Ignore Americans. Say things like, "I don't care at all about their financial situation." As he recently said, "That doesn't bother me at all." They just don't understand. This herd doesn't understand why I'm doing all this.
Look, everyone tells me it's unpopular, but I think it's very popular. When they hear that it's about nuclear weapons, weapons that could take out Los Angeles, could take out major cities very quickly. When they hear that, you know, when they're explaining, I'll tell you what, when we explain it to people, I don't really have enough time to explain to people. I'm too busy getting it done. But when they understand, I think it's frankly very popular. But whether it's popular or not, I have to do it. And moreover,
That the US could attack Iran as early as this Friday, May 22nd, he says, like, of course I hope that we'll be able to attack. But let's go back to his earlier statements, so to speak. Trump stated that he proposed a planned military attack on Iran, which was supposed to take place today, May 19th. According to Donald Trump, he was allegedly asked, even begged, to call off the attack on Iran. The Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, the Crown Prince and Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, as well as the President of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. Now remember all these names because it's very important. Next, I'll quote Trump. These leaders asked me to postpone the military attack on the Islamic Republic of Iran that was planned for tomorrow. Out of respect for the above-mentioned leaders, I instructed Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Daniel Kaine, and the United States Armed Forces that we will not carry out the attack on Iran planned for tomorrow, but also instructed them to be ready for a full-scale offensive against Iran at any moment if an acceptable agreement is not reached. And right after that, Trump stated that very serious negotiations are currently underway. According to him, the mentioned leaders of the Persian Gulf countries believe that an agreement will be reached that is quite acceptable for the United States as well as for all countries in the Middle East and beyond. The deal will include, Trump says, will include a ban on nuclear weapons for Iran. And once again, Trump says, Trump put it in a cartoonish way, that if there is no deal this time, supposedly as Ukrainians say, you're in for it. If there is no deal this time, as they say in Ukrainian, you're in for it. Then the US will definitely launch a full-scale offensive against Iran. But just believe it, this time Trump supposedly isn't bluffing. Well, maybe before, but definitely not now. In response, Iran officially laid out its conditions for making peace with the United States of America. The list turned out to be long. It covers everything from sanctions to the withdrawal of American troops. Tehran's new peace proposal includes a ceasefire on all fronts, including Lebanon, the withdrawal of American military forces from areas near Iran, as well as reparations for the destruction resulting from the US and Israel's conflict with Iran. And this essentially amounts to an admission that the US has lost. Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Qasem Garibabadi said that Iran is also seeking the lifting of sanctions, the unfreezing of frozen assets, and an end to the maritime blockade by the US. If you follow the news, then you already understand that these conditions from Iran are pretty much no different from the previous ones. Tehran's proposals, which Trump called complete nonsense last week and said were unacceptable. This time they are slightly modifying these conditions. Basically, they are the same. But Trump is already saying that they are close to a deal because Iran supposedly made concessions, but Iran did not make any concessions. And here's the problem. This problem is called the nuclear program. According to the Iranian Fars agency, Washington refuses to provide any compensation for the damage caused to Tehran. The US also plans to remove 400 kilograms of enriched uranium from Iran and agrees to the operation of only one nuclear facility complex in the country. In addition, President Donald Trump's administration does not agree to unfreeze even 25% of Iran's frozen assets and directly links the end of the war to the progress of negotiations. By putting forward such conditions, the US is trying to achieve goals that it failed to reach during the war, according to Iranian authorities. They also point out that the threat of aggression from the US and Israel will remain even after the stated demands are met. In this regard, the Iran-backed Mehr news agency reported a deadlock in the negotiations, and now, the most important thing. That same Fars publication, back on May 12 when Iran's 5 points were published, emphasized that Tehran would not return to negotiations with the US unless all these conditions were met. Moreover, Iranian authorities consider their demands to be the minimum measures needed to build trust. And since then, Iran's position has actually not changed. But Donald Trump has alternated between announcing an attack, assuring that negotiations are going well, and therefore he's canceling the attack, and then adding that supposedly someone is trying to talk him into something. And now, here's the most interesting part. The statement by the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, that the decision to postpone the military strike on the announced target in Iran was made after appeals from the leaders of the Arab states of the Persian Gulf, turned out to be, at the very least, to put it mildly, an exaggeration and, to be honest, a lie. The Wall Street Journal decided to call the offices of the Middle Eastern leaders mentioned by Trump. And in these offices, unexpectedly, they said diplomatically that they had not coordinated any such initiative and had not asked Washington to postpone a possible military operation. Moreover, in all three countries, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the Emirates, they stated that they were not even aware of the existence of specific US plans to strike Iran during the specified period, nor of any requests related to postponing such actions. Everything we are discussing, well, they learned from the media and Donald Trump's post, in which he claims that all the Gulf leaders called him and were simply begging, "Please, Donnie, postpone this attack on Iran." But these leaders' offices respond, "What are you talking about? No one called anyone. We didn't even know he was planning to attack." So now we have a new date. Now Trump says, well, on May 22 we'll definitely attack. If there's no deal, we'll definitely attack. Well, I don't know. You could already start placing bets. Will they attack or not? I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so by donating through the links and details in the description of this video. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.